Okay, we are back. In the previous video, we got the spine rigged on this character, and now we're going to finish it up. Now, if we go back to our image, we can see that we've gotten all the way down to here done. So, the next in the structure would be the shoulder left, then the shoulder right, and then the leg left, leg right. I like to do the legs next, so I'm going to jump down to the legs. We're going to do the upper leg, lower leg, foot, and a toe. So that's upper leg, lower leg, foot, and toe. That is the how it should be set up in Unity Mecanum. So I'm going to go back to my Create Joint tool. We already have projected centering selected on. And we need to get the position for the upper leg. Now, if we look at how the Human IK works, and I'm going to go, this is a brand new Maya over here, and I'm going to open up the animation Human IK, and I'm going to say create skeleton. Alright. The Human IK skeleton needs to be characterized, and if you were to look at the definition, you can see everything's green here, and there's the validation is all good. When you start moving certain bones through here in the arm or the leg, this validation status can go to warning that the character is not in a T-pose. So there's a few rules that I like to follow to make sure that the validation status here is good, because Unity actually checks the same exact validation status for Mecanum. Essentially, Mecanum and Human IK characterization are the same thing. They're built the same way to work hand in hand for animation retargeting. So the purposes of that, of working with Mecanum, I like to follow this bone structure, which means the legs are completely straight, and the arms and the fingers are completely straight, except the thumb. It's okay if the thumb comes down. So we have a completely straight spine. We have an angle here, but a completely straight leg. We have an angle here, that's okay. We have an angle here, that's okay. Completely straight all the way through the fingers, except the thumb. So we could use this as a reference, but I'm going to go back here, and with that in mind, that's important for the placement of the first leg bone, because I want the first leg bone to be basically, we're going to use this line in the mesh, I guess, that goes right down the knee. And I'm going to, before I do this, I'm going to turn on symmetry to the x-axis. And now with projected centering turned on, I'm going to click right here. And we're going to see that two joints were created, joint 1 and joint 2, which has a symmetry constraint. And that looks good. Let's go ahead and move on to the knee position. And after that, we have the ankle. I'm going to double check that the side looks good. Now it is, sometimes I would like to move the joint up into here so that the mesh deforms more like an actual knee would. But in this case, for Human IK, I'm going to have a completely straight line. The next bone is the ankle bone. So I'm going to put that ankle bone, of course, right where I believe the ankle would be, probably here. And the last bone is the ball of the foot, and that represents a bending in all of the toes. So we can imagine the toes bending, and where that happens at, of course, is in the ball of the foot. So I'm going to click about right here for the final bone in the legs. Now going back into perspective view, I could see that I have both legs created because of our symmetry on the X. And I'm going to move these into position now. And before I do, let me rename them. Now the symmetry constraint, I could just delete that. The joints are still going to be here. And let's go to comment rename. So I'm going to search for joint, and I'm going to replace it with leg. There we go. And if I look at the naming convention, how Unity names it in the legs, we got upper leg, lower leg, foot, toes. So upper leg left, lower leg left, foot left, toes left. So on these two, let's get the comment rename, and I'm going to say a prefix of upper. And I guess I wanted to have a uppercase leg in there. So, and then this one, we got a prefix of lower. Upper leg, lower leg, foot and toes. And these ones we'll do a foot. And here we got a toes. And I'm going to manually delete the number out of these. And I messed up foot because I put a capitalization in it. So this one is upper leg right, and I'm just going to double check to make sure upper leg, yep, I got them named right. So on the rest of these, I should be able to just say, add a suffix of, oops, that's the wrong side, this is left. And on all these, I'm going to add a suffix of right with a capital R. And of course I did these with a lowercase, so okay, so I got the naming done on all of these. I'm going to select the upper left leg and the upper right leg, and I want to make those a child of the hips. I'm middle clicking on the mouse and dragging to the hips. So now the hips, we have the spine, the upper leg left, and the upper leg right. Now I'm going to look at the transform values of these because I want to make sure that they're perfectly zeroed out and it's a perfectly straight leg. And before I do that, I'm going to select all of them and I'm going to go to the comment joint orient and show the axis, because I could see that the axes are all funny down here. So with all of the leg bones selected and the comment joint orient, I'm going to put the aim axis to X, up axis to Y, and I'm going to put the world up to Z, and let's say orient joints. We got the X going down the leg and the knee, with the Y going forward, the Z going this way. That's what we want. So if you were to select both the legs and rotate them, we can see they rotate in the same direction. And if we select all of the legs and put a rotation on that, we can see that they, hopefully that's going to hurt, but bending this way, we can see that they're bending how they should. So now that the orientation is set up on the joints, so the legs should be done. What I'm going to do is select everything and actually just hit root and select the hierarchy and say comment joint orient hide axis. And going into a side view, I can see that the legs are nice and straight. The spine's nice and straight. And if we want to make sure that we're doing everything right, we should open up the Windows Animation, Editors, Human IK. And let's go to Create Character Definition. And from here, we need to populate the bones as we're creating them. And then if there's an error with something, we'll see it while we're creating. So if my legs have an error or if my arms aren't straight, it'll tell me and I can get it fixed before it's too late. So I'm going to assign the hips, and I don't know the best way to do this. I think it is to click here on the hips, and then if you right click assign selected bone, so root, right click assign selected bone, and you can navigate this with your keyboard arrows up and down. Oh, maybe not. I guess not. Complete child structures you can, like here, I guess here I can, but anyways, let me hips, spine, so you can just right click assign selected bone. Now we got to go to chest, so I'm going to say to spine view, and chest is going to get assigned as spine number 1. And so back to full body view, that's the only, we got one bone on the chest to the spine view. The next one is the next view, and the same thing, we're putting one bone on neck. And then we're going to get out of there, and we're going to assign the head bone to head. So far we got green, and it says missing required bones. So we're going to assign the left leg, down arrow, and toes is going to go into here to left toe base. Now it already found these based on their names, so the right leg is good. And I can see the legs are green, so that's good. We just got to go into the arms now. So going into the arms, back into Maya, where Unity's Mecanum layout, we got to do an optional bone here for shoulder, upper arm, lower arm, hand. And then from the hand, we're going to go into fingers. But first, let's get this done. Shoulder, upper arm, lower arm, hand. That's 4 bones. Let's look at how this works. This is the human IK skeleton that's automatically created. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4. So we can see that works exactly how Mecanum does. Is the human IK skeleton here in Maya. But the only bone that's going to have a curve is this one. The shoulder to the upper arm is going to be completely straight, and so is everything else. So we're going to go into the Create Joint button. And I'm going to create a joint. This one is important that it's going to come straight down the arm. And that means that we may have to edit the mesh because this arm is sloping down. And I might have to edit this mesh to get the arm straight. So I'm actually going to do that now. To the front view. And I want the arm to go straight with one of these grid lines. So essentially where the shoulder is, I want the hand to be lined up with that, or just a little bit below it. But here we can see the hand is too far down. So I'm going to go to the select tool, and I'm going to go to soft selection, and I'm going to turn on soft select and symmetry. I want to turn symmetry on for the object X, and I want to turn on soft select, and let's see what happens. I'm going to go from component selection, and then I'm going to go to select vertices. Now soft selection, of course, if I select here, you can see soft selection is softly selecting out here, and that's what I wanted to do. So it gives it a nice smooth selection. And symmetry should be over here, so yeah, I could see I've selected both sides. So I'm going to press, first of all, I'm going to select up to probably here. I'm going to press E for rotate. Okay, so if the manipulator isn't showing up, then you need to turn on both of these, this one and this one. Select point components and parameter point components. You can see with just the dot, I don't have any manipulator on my move or rotate tool. And if I have this selected, there's my manipulator. So that fixes that problem. Alright, so back on the selection, make sure that you have symmetry turned on either to object X or world X. World X would work in this case because he's right in the middle of the world. And we want soft select turned on. And I'm going to go to the front view. And I'm going to select all the way up to here. And now I'm going to press E for rotate. And I'm going to say the edit pivot. And we're going to move this to the position where the shoulder would be at. The shoulder, I can see a bone coming up here. So probably about here. Maybe a little bit over this way. And I'm going to have to go into perspective actually to get the pivot in the right spot. Somewhere about here. And maybe back this way a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to press E to get out of the edit pivot mode, and let's go ahead and rotate the arm up. First, I'm going to go to this view. That's not the way I want to go. That looks pretty good because I could see that this dot lines up with this dot. So coming from the shoulder has to line up perfectly with the elbow. So the shoulder could come through here. That looks like a pretty good start. I think there's some... This model specifically, the elbow looks a little down, like I want to rotate the arm at the elbow. Or maybe bring it up. Bringing it up is going to do some funny stuff there. Let's try to rotate it a little bit. And I want to edit the pivot to rotate at the elbow. Or in the middle of the arm. I want the hand to be completely flat. That looks pretty good. I want to actually edit the one vertice and move it down so that that line is a little bit more straight. And if I go into this view, I could see that if I have a shoulder bone, maybe around here, or the upper arm bone, then it can go straight into the elbow, and then we need to go straight into the hand. So if anything, just the wrist needs to get rotated. I don't know if that's going to be the best spot for the wrist. Probably. But again, rotation works the best, so I'm going to edit the pivot. And that's going to be rotation of the wrist, which is going to happen right about here. So I want the hand to be flat with the grid. That looks pretty good. And the next part would be the fingers. And the fingers are going to rotate at this part of the hand right through here. So I need to edit the pivot and bring it back into about here. Press E to get out of that and rotate those fingers up so they're just a little bit more flat. Alright, that T-pose looks a lot better. I'm not going to spend all day on it to make it absolutely perfect for this tutorial, but we do need to have a straight line coming through the arm all the way to the fingers. So I think that looks, if I have a shoulder, elbow, wrist, hand, that looks pretty close. And once we're done making the armature, we might have to adjust the mesh to match a little bit. But let's go ahead and get on with the joint placement. I'm going to go into the front view and select the joint placement tool. We have projected centering turned on. And I want to put the first one. It's okay for this one to have a angle, but the angle right here needs to match with the end of the fingers. So I can see the end of the fingers are here. Coming down this grid axis. And this is not the upper arm, it is the shoulder, so I'm going to go about here. And after that we have the upper arm, which I could see the bump here in the arm. I think that's a good spot for it. And then after that we have the elbow. The wrist or the hand bone. And we're going to stop right there because after that it is going to be the fingers. So we're going to wait on that for just a moment. Now there's a little bit of a bend here, and let's name these joints and put them into the hierarchy. I'm going to delete all the symmetry constraints. Looking at the naming structure, the first one is shoulder right, upper arm right, lower arm right, hand right. So we got shoulder, upper arm, lower arm, and hand. So these ones are going to have a suffix of left, and these ones are going to have a suffix of right. And now I should be ready to middle click, drop these onto the hips. Wait a second, no. The arms are a child of the chest. So shoulder left and shoulder right should be a child of the chest. So we got hip, spine, chest, neck, shoulder left, shoulder right, upper leg left, upper leg right. Let's go back to the Human IK editor. And it looks like for our character definition, we need to go first of all into the left shoulder view, and left shoulder is going to be assigned to, of course, shoulder left, and that's only one bone that gets assigned there. And then we could press the down arrow on the keyboard, right click, assign selected bone, down arrow, right click, assign selected bone, down arrow, right click, assign selected bone. Now we're going to see that warning that I was talking about earlier where it says the validation status, the right arm doesn't seem to be parallel to the x-axis. And what that error is actually saying is this bone is not lined up with this one. The elbow could be a little bit offset, but this bone and this bone need to be perfectly lined up. So if I were to go into the left arm, here we go, and I look at the upper arm left on the here, I'm going to go ahead and click this button to show the attribute editor. And I'm going to dock that over here. There we go. Okay, I can see that looking at the shoulder left, it has a joint orientation that's kind of funny, but that's okay because the shoulder can be a little bit oriented funny. But the upper arm left has an orientation of negative 3.7. I'm going to zero that out. And I'm also going to zero out the lower arm left. And the hand left. So let's go back up to the shoulder. And let's see which one is .270 and a negative 90, which is 270. So 270 and 270, that's going to be a perfectly straight arm. So I could see that that's the position that I want to get the arm into. So now I'm going to edit the mesh to get it there. And if I go back to my Human IK, Now you can see that this arm is green, no more air on it. Now it would have been nice if I didn't delete my constraints, because now I gotta fix all these by hand. But let me go back to the attribute editor on the shoulder right, and we're gonna set this to 270/90. Upper arm 0, lower arm 000, and a hand is 000. Now really we should have checked that on the spine itself, but we know the spine is good because of projected centering. So same thing with the legs. It would be nice to know that the legs are perfectly straight. You can see that the joint orientation is a little bit off, but the legs, you could get away with that. And the arms, anyways, here in the human IK, it's going to want you to have them perfect. So now I've got a green check mark on my validation status. We just have to modify the mesh to make it match this. So I'm going to go to the selection, make sure you got both of these selected. And the arm looks good up until the elbow, so we just have to modify from the elbow back. On this model, I want to select all of these vertices. Yep, to modify the elbow. So I'm going to press E for rotate. And let's try to go to a top view. I'm going to turn on my shading and X-ray joints. Let's move the edit pivot over here to the position of the elbow. And we're going to press E, or you could click this to get out of that. And we're going to rotate it right there till the... And if it's not working, I'm going to move my mouse farther away so I have a little bit better control. Alright, that looks good to me. Maybe just a little bit. Alright, that's the spot. And because we have the soft selection for a nice smooth selection, we got symmetry so that it fixes the other side at the same time. Now I believe that our model is in correct T-pose. I'm going to get rid of my selection. Alright, we got the model in T-pose. The joints are positioned. We got green check on our human IK, which is great for Unity, because Unity, again, wants to match this validation status. Everything's in place. The next, we got to get the hands done. And the last part of these bones are going to be to make sure that the orientation is right on all of the arms. So let's hit Comet Joint Orient Show Axis. And I can see that we got Z forward, Y up, and we got Z back, Y down on the left arm. That's okay. We don't need to fix that. That looks good to me. And the reason why is because if you select the shoulder left and the shoulder right, and let's go to rotate them. When I rotate the arms, they move together. Instead of both rotating the same direction, when I rotate the shoulders, the arms move in the same direction. But it's opposite directions because the orientations are opposite. So that's fine. We're going to say hide the, we could go to select hierarchy, joint orient, hide axis. All right, in the next video, we're going to be getting the hands rigged and finishing up this rig.